In 1872, the United States federal government passed a quiet amendment to frontier land laws that changed everything. Families who had survived brutal Wild West winters on nothing but forgotten survival skills were suddenly told their methods were dangerous, unsanitary, and illegal. Your great-grandfather heard that news on a frontier cattle trail in Wyoming and kept doing exactly what his father taught him. His family survived. The families who listened to Washington did not. Here is what they never tell you. Every brutal frontier survival skill on this list has now been quietly vindicated by modern research. Number 12 was outlawed in 6 Western states. Today, university survival experts teach the same method at wilderness schools for $400 a weekend. Number 14 was called primitive in 1890. In 2019, a Johns Hopkins study confirmed it was medically superior to what replaced it. These 25 forgotten Wild West survival skills were not abandoned because they stopped working. They were abandoned because forgetting them made somebody rich. Before we start this countdown, hit that subscribe button. What you are about to learn is not fantasy. It is American frontier history, buried on purpose. This countdown is the recovery. 25 brutal frontier survival skills. Real history, real skills, real American survival. Number 25, the Frontier Cache Pit. Your great-grandmother on the Kansas frontier in 1878 dug a pit 4 feet deep behind her sod house every October. She lined it with dry straw, packed it with root vegetables, apples wrapped in newspaper, and a layer of ash on top. She sealed it with boards and earth. When the brutal frontier winter hit and temperatures dropped to 20 below, her family ate fresh potatoes in February. The pit maintained 35 degrees all winter, zero electricity, zero cost. A 2014 University of Nebraska study on traditional root storage confirmed what your great-grandmother knew in her bones. Properly constructed frontier cache pits preserve produce with a spoilage rate lower than modern refrigeration. Today, in many counties, digging an underground storage pit without a permit violates zoning codes. The permit costs more than the storage it replaces. Your frontier ancestors never asked permission to feed their own families through winter. Number 24, buffalo chip fuel. On the treeless prairies of 1875 Dakota Territory, your great-grandfather burned dried buffalo and cattle manure to heat his sod dugout. 1 chip equaled roughly half a pound of coal in heat output. A family could gather enough fuel in 1 autumn afternoon to heat their home for a month. The technique was not desperation, it was engineering. The chips burned clean, hot, and nearly smokeless. The railroad companies in the 1880s aggressively promoted coal as the only modern fuel, forcing hundreds of frontier families into dependency for heat they used to gather free. Today, researchers studying carbon-neutral fuels at Colorado State University have confirmed dried dung is among the most efficient biofuels on Earth. The knowledge survives today only in a few isolated ranching communities. Number 23, willow bark pain relief. Your frontier great-grandmother chewed willow bark when a rattlesnake struck or a child spiked a fever. She stripped inner bark from the creek willow, simmered it into bitter tea, and dosed carefully by age and weight. Her method reduced fever, killed pain, and thinned blood. The tribes taught it to the settlers taught it to their children. Willow bark contains salicin, the precursor to aspirin. In 1899, the German corporation Bayer patented a synthetic version and spent the next 2 decades lobbying American medical boards to discredit the natural original. By 1920, frontier willow bark medicine had been reclassified as folk quackery in mainstream medical texts. A 2008 Cochrane review confirmed willow bark's effectiveness matches low-dose aspirin for chronic pain, with fewer gastrointestinal side effects. Your great-grandmother was not superstitious. She was correct. Number 22. The Frontier Spring House. Before refrigeration reached the Wild West, your great-grandparents built small stone structures over cold spring water. Butter, milk, cream, and fresh meat sat submerged in water that stayed between 40 and 52 degrees year-round. A property-built Frontier Spring House maintained food better than a 1950s icebox. No electricity, no ice harvesting, no running cost forever. Modern health codes now classify spring house storage as non-compliant for commercial use, citing contamination risk. The actual contamination rate in historical records is effectively zero when the spring is clean. On private land for your private family, the practice remains legal in every state. The knowledge is the problem. Almost no one teaches it anymore. Number 21. Pemmican. Pause here. This one deserves your attention. In 1876, the United States Army issued pemmican as emergency ration to frontier cavalry units because it outperformed every other preserved food available. Your great-grandfather on the Wyoming cattle drives carried pemmican strips that stayed edible for 5 years without refrigeration. The formula was simple: dried buffalo or beef pounded to powder, rendered tallow, wild berries for vitamin C, mixed and pressed into cakes. Here is the forgotten truth. A 1917 Arctic expedition journal documented that men survived 6 months on pemmican alone, with zero scurvy, zero malnutrition, and full physical performance. Modern food science at McMaster University has since confirmed pemmican meets the complete human macronutrient profile better than almost any commercial survival food sold today. The United States Department of Agriculture currently prohibits interstate commercial sale of traditional pemmican under meat processing regulations. The lobbying behind those regulations came from companies that sell freeze-dried survival food at 10 times the cost. Your frontier great-grandfather carried it in his saddlebag. You cannot legally buy it from across a state line. Number 20. Open-range hunting. Your great-grandfather on the 1880 Texas frontier hunted deer, pronghorn, and wild turkey to feed his family without a license, without a permit, and without asking a single federal agency. Wild game made up nearly 40% of frontier caloric intake. Families who knew where to find game never went hungry. By 1910, state fish and game departments had been established in every western state. Licensing requirements followed. The stated reason was conservation. The actual effect was pricing out subsistence hunting from the poor families who had depended on it for generations. Today, the skills of tracking, field dressing, and butchering wild game on the Wild West frontier are preserved mostly in hunting schools that charge $2,000 per course. Your great-grandfather learned it from his father when he was 9. Number 19. The Dutch oven. Every frontier chuck wagon on the 1875 cattle drives carried a cast-iron Dutch oven. Your great-grandfather could bake bread, roast meat, simmer beans, and fry bacon in the same vessel using only campfire coals. A properly seasoned Dutch oven lasts 200 years. The skills for cooking on coals, counting coals on top versus bottom, rotating the pot, judging temperature by hand, were taught to every frontier child. The aluminum cookware industry spent decades in mid-20th century America promoting lightweight modern cookware as superior and modern. Cast iron skills nearly died in a single generation. In 2014, a Journal of Food Science study found that cooking in seasoned cast iron adds measurable dietary iron to food, enough to prevent anemia in households that use it consistently. Your great-grandmother fed her frontier family with cookware that made them healthier by accident. Number 18. Rawhide repair. Take note of this one. It changed everything on the Wild West frontier. In 1877, your great-grandfather could repair almost any broken tool, wagon, or implement using rawhide and water. Wet rawhide wrapped around a broken axe handle, a cracked wagon wheel, or a split rifle stock. When it dried, it shrank with enormous force, creating a bond stronger than most modern adhesives. The frontier wisdom held that a man with rawhide, a knife, and water was never truly broken down. Here is the forgotten science. The Smithsonian Institution's 2011 materials research publication confirmed rawhide bonds exert over 300 pounds of contractile force per square inch as they dry. That is stronger than many industrial epoxies. Today, almost no one knows how to process rawhide at home. The skill survives in leatherworking schools, scattered Native American communities, and a handful of traditional saddle makers. Every frontier family once knew it cold. Number 17. Frontier water divining. Your great-grandfather on the 1882 Montana plains found underground water without a single tool beyond a forked willow branch. Call it superstition if you like, call it pseudoscience. But frontier homesteaders found water this way on thousands of claims, and the wells they dug produced for generations. In 1986, the German government commissioned a 10-year scientific study on water divining. The results, published in peer-reviewed geology journals, found statistically significant accuracy among experienced dowsers in locating shallow aquifers. The mechanism remains debated. The results are not. Modern well drilling companies charge $6,000 to drill a well. Your frontier great-grandfather found his water for free. Number 16. Tanning hides at home. In 1878, your great-grandmother tanned deer hides, buffalo robes, and beaver pelts in a wooden trough behind the cabin using wood ash, lime, and animal brains. The process was labor-intensive. The results were leather goods that lasted 50 years. Boots, coats, harnesses, and saddles came from the family's own hands. The commercial tanning industry in the early 20th century lobbied aggressively for chemical tanning regulations that effectively outlawed traditional brain tanning and bark tanning at residential scale in most counties. The Environmental Protection Agency classifies home tanning waste as regulated. Traditional frontier tanning, however, produced no toxic byproducts. The modern chemical industry does. Your great-grandmother made leather cleaner than any factory. Number 15. The Sod House. Stop for a moment. This is worth hearing. On the treeless prairies of the Dakota Territory, your great-grandfather could not buy lumber. So, in 1880, he built a home out of the ground itself. Cut blocks of thick prairie sod, stacked them like bricks, roofed with more sod, bundled grass, and packed earth. The walls were 3 feet thick. The interior temperature stayed at 65 degrees in 100-degree summers and held warmth through 40 below zero winters. The structure cost nothing except labor. It lasted 30 years. Here is the documented truth. The United States Department of Agriculture published a 1937 Farmer's Bulletin titled "Rammed Earth Walls for Buildings," confirming earthen construction met every structural standard of the era. By 1970, modern building codes in most Western states had effectively outlawed residential earthen construction by requiring certified insulation ratings that earthen walls do not technically meet. Earthen walls work on thermal mass, not insulation, a different principle that modern codes refuse to recognize. In New Mexico, adobe remains legal under a specific code. Nearly everywhere else, your great-grandfather's frontier home would be torn down. Number 14. Frontier midwifery. Your great-grandmother on the 1885 Wyoming frontier delivered her neighbors' babies with clean hands, boiled rags, and decades of inherited knowledge. She knew the warning signs. She knew how to turn a breech baby. She knew which herbs stopped hemorrhage. Frontier midwives delivered the majority of children west of the Mississippi until 1920. In 1910, the Flexner Report, funded by the Carnegie and Rockefeller Foundations, led to the systematic closure of midwifery programs across America. The American Medical Association lobbied state legislatures to require physician-only births. By 1950, home birth had been reclassified as dangerous and irresponsible. A 2014 Lancet series on maternal health found that for low-risk pregnancies, trained midwife-attended births produce outcomes equivalent to or better than hospital births, with lower intervention rates. Your great-grandmother was not reckless. She was skilled. Number 13. Salt curing. Your great-grandfather slaughtered a hog in November, packed the meat in dry salt, and hung the cured hams in the smokehouse until May. Proper salt curing preserves pork, beef, fish, and game for over a year without refrigeration. The technique is chemistry, not luck. Salt draws water from meat, making it uninhabitable for bacterial growth. In 1977, the United States Department of Agriculture issued regulations requiring sodium nitrite in commercial cured meats and warning against traditional dry-cured products. A 2019 Harvard School of Public Health study found that traditional dry-cured, nitrite-free meats contain none of the carcinogens found in industrially processed cured meats. Your frontier great-grandfather cured meat that was healthier than anything in a modern supermarket. On your own property for your own family, the practice remains legal. The skill has almost died. Number 12. Hand-dug wells. On the 1882 Kansas frontier, your great-grandfather dug his own well by hand, 8 feet deep, lined with stone, capped with a windlass and bucket. The water was clean, cold, and free for the next 100 years. State well drilling regulations, lobbied for by commercial drilling companies throughout the 20th century, now require licensed contractors in nearly every state. The cost of a professional well exceeds $10,000. A hand-dug well built by a skilled laborer on private land remains legal in most Western states, but is now almost unknown outside Amish and Mennonite communities. Your great-grandfather never paid a water bill in his life.
Number 11. Frontier herbal medicine.
Pay attention to this one. Your great-grandmother on the 1883 Colorado frontier grew or gathered over 30 medicinal plants. Echinacea for infection, yarrow to stop bleeding, peppermint for digestion, mullein for coughs, comfrey for broken bones. Her knowledge came from a long chain of frontier wisdom, Native American teachings, and pioneer experience. The 1910 Flexner Report, funded by foundations with investments in the emerging pharmaceutical industry, resulted in the closure of most American medical schools that taught botanical medicine. By 1950, frontier herbal knowledge had been reclassified as dangerous. Today, the National Institutes of Health maintains a plant medicine database that confirms documented pharmacological action for dozens of traditional frontier herbs. The Food and Drug Administration still prohibits medical claims by herbalists. The plants work anyway.
Your great-grandmother knew this. Number 10. Scouting weather by nature. Your great-grandfather read weather by watching cattle behavior, cloud formations, wind direction, and plant movement. He could predict a Wild West blizzard 3 days before it hit. The skill saved lives on the frontier. Thousands of homesteaders died in unexpected storms they never saw coming. Families who knew the signs survived. The National Weather Service was established in 1870, and over the following century, traditional weather reading knowledge was dismissed as folklore. A 2018 University of Missouri study on traditional weather prediction found that experienced farmers using observational methods predicted short-term severe weather events with accuracy comparable to early digital models. Your great-grandfather read the sky better than most modern forecasters read their radar. Number 9. The buckskin wardrobe. Your great-grandparents on the 1875 frontier made their own clothes from the hides of animals they hunted. Buckskin trousers, elk hide coats, moccasins, and leather gloves. Properly made frontier buckskin lasted a decade of hard wear. The same outfit covered hundreds of miles of brutal Wild West labor. The textile industry's explosive growth from 1900 to 1950 coincided with an aggressive marketing campaign framing homemade clothing as rural and backward. By 1970, American families had lost nearly all skills of leather garment construction. Traditional buckskin, documented in 2003 archaeological studies, remains among the most durable, weather-resistant, and ecologically sustainable clothing materials ever produced. Your great-grandfather wore what the earth provided. Number 8. Frontier food drying. Your great-grandmother dried meat, fruit, vegetables, and herbs in the brutal Wild West sun on wooden racks behind the cabin. Dried beef became jerky. Dried apples lasted a year. Dried corn was ground into meal all winter. Solar dehydration was free, effective, and required no special equipment beyond a wooden frame and a cloth cover. The industrial food preservation industry of the 20th century had no use for sun drying because it generated no sales. Commercial dehydrators entered American homes by 1980 at prices of $200 to $300. A 2012 Journal of Food Engineering study confirmed that properly done solar dehydration preserves more vitamin content than most commercial methods. Your great-grandmother's drying rack outperformed a modern appliance she never needed. Number 7. Soap from wood ash. Your great-grandmother made lye by dripping water through wood ash, then combined it with rendered animal fat to make soap. One batch produced enough soap to wash an entire frontier family for a full year. The cost was zero. The quality was comparable to premium modern soaps. The Procter & Gamble Company began industrial soap production in 1879. By 1920, commercial soap had been marketed as modern and sanitary, while homemade lye soap was branded as primitive and harsh. The technique is neither. A 2016 Journal of Cosmetic Science study found traditional cold-process lye soap produces a gentler, more moisturizing clean than most commercial bar soaps. Your great-grandmother made better soap in her frontier kitchen than you can buy in a modern store. Your great-grandparents survived the Wild West frontier. They survived brutal winters, starvation, disease, and isolation with skills that modern Americans could not match for a single week. We forgot it in one generation, because forgetting was profitable for somebody else. That knowledge did not die. It just went quiet. It is time to start listening again.